back in the beginning, it wasn't Maker's Mark. It was a way for Dad to have something to do during the daytime because my mother decided he needed to get out of the house. He'd already taken early retirement and was looking for something to do. Distilleries were failing almost on a weekly basis. And after a couple of months of search, he grabbed me. It was June 4th, 1953, and we went off to the Marion County Courthouse here, and he bought this little place. It was called the Burke's Distillery. Back then, it was old and it was really run down. I think the reason that my father picked this place over many others that were available, it was depopulated. So the water was perfect. And to him, the local water, the local limestone water here in the middle of the limestone shelf was so important. But it gave him a way to escape and to really try and see if he could craft the kind of whiskey that his 5 forefathers were never able to do.
My earliest memory was as a very young boy in the distillery with my grandfather, and I was marveling at the sounds and the smells and all the visuals inside the distillery, and he made a point to introduce me to all the people. And he said that it really begins with the people.
I think about where we are now and wondered if any of it was ever planned, and I think not. I think there was a great foundation laid that really differentiated what was going on down here from what was going on in the rest of the bourbon world. Dad was so focused on his craft, his idea for what the taste had to be to satisfy him, pull that flavor forward, make it good from the first sip, something that had not been accomplished in the bourbon industry. And then, quite by accident, I suspect, Mom intervened just at the right moments, and she added those elements of connoisseurship, which have really provided bourbon an opportunity to go beyond Kentucky.
What's really magical to me is the way my father and the team here chose to expand in the late 1990s. And they chose to expand in a way no distillery in the world had ever chosen to expand, which is instead of doing bigger stills, bigger fermenters, scaling up in a way to reduce cost, we built a mirror image of the original distillery. So when you step inside the Maker's Mark distillery, it gives the illusion of looking into a mirror when you're actually looking into the second distillery that we built here. And the idea is that with an exact replica, same equipment, same process equals same taste and consistency over time. It's recent changes, but still the same, which is why it feels right and is so consistent with our founder's vision for the place. One of the more interesting is collaborating with Dale Chihuly, the glass sculpture artist, who in April of last year unveiled what he said is one of his proudest pieces he's ever created, called The Spirit of the Maker. Is made up of 1,300 individual handmade pieces of glass and celebrating the defining elements of Maker's Mark. And this installation is within one of our aging warehouses. There's blues that celebrate our water source, the browns, the golds, the ambers celebrate the grain and the color of the bourbon. But it's in that environment in which we invite our friends to come experience Maker's Mark, and we toast our founders with a sample of cask strength Maker's Mark. And ultimately, as a whiskey, you are who you are when you roll out of that barrel. And it's a really wonderful experience that we get to celebrate with our friends when they come see us, surrounded by that beautiful installation. I'd say one of the most powerful moments in my life was in 1992, just as I was heading off to university, and my grandfather invited me to lunch. And after our meal, it was a moment I'll never forget because he sort of reflected back, gazed out the window, and it was really interesting for me to hear through his words and his voice how proud he was in what he'd created. And I think what our team here is so very proud of today is that 60 plus years after the very beginning, the bourbon being made in the distillery is just as special as it was in that very first morning in 1954.
Well, there's been a lot of changes, but there really hasn't been any changes. And I think if Mom and Dad were to come back today, they'd be thrilled. Mom would be thrilled with, wow, we've taken care of her property, her old historic property. And Dad would be pleased that, my gosh, you're making so much more bourbon, so much more Makers Markets, going to so many more wonderful places around the world, but you're doing it exactly as we did 50 years ago.